I'd just like to share a few thoughts on the article that was published yesterday on Front Office Sports by Tim Marchman in cooperation with Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics and John Pollock of Post Wrestling. It's an article entitled WWE President Nick Khan, Chief Operating Officer Brad Bloom revealed as key figures in Vince McMahon sex trafficking suit. Basically, the article fills in some names that were redacted from Janel Grant's original lawsuit filing back in January. Instead of naming people specifically, they were instead referred to as Corporate Officer 1, 2, 3, and 4, leading to a lot of speculation, but a little digging, and ultimately reaching out to Janel Grant's lawyer, Tim Marchman was able to confirm the names of the people in the lawsuit. So as the article mentions, WWE President Nick Khan and Chief Operating Officer Nick Bloom are two of the previously unnamed corporate officers. They're corporate officers 1 and 2 respectively. Khan and Bloom, this is important to note, are not accused of any sexual misconduct or aggressions or violence or anything, but more or of knowing specifically that these acts were happening. Rather, and this is very important because I feel like a lot of people are missing the plot on this one here and are instantly lumping them these two into Vince's misdeeds, but instead, and this is important here, the suit claims that they had facilitated and covered up Grant's exploitation and were instrumental in a scheme in which McMahon arranged for Grant to be employed in a completely undefined role, except for the understanding that she would remain a sex slave to be used and trafficked by McMahon within the WWE. This is what the lawsuit purports, of course. So in other words, Khan and Bloom are essentially, I don't know what the right word is, enablers, fixers. I don't know how you go about what the right term would be, but essentially they were instrumental in making sure that Grant was kept around for Vince. Again, according to the lawsuit, McMahon relied on Bloom for assistance in placing Janel Grant within the company in an entry-level legal job for which she had minimal qualifications. According again to the lawsuit, Janel Grant listed Khan and Bloom among people who knew enough about her relationship that their roles should have been addressed in an NDA during negotiations over the NDA's drafting. This is pointed out multiple times in the lawsuit in different circumstances, especially, like for instance, she gives an example as to running into Nick Khan, in the building and introducing herself, and Nick Khan goes, "Oh, I know who you are." There is no reason why the CEO, the top dog of the company, should know who an entry-level legal person is in the company. Like, there is no reason for that other than, showing your hand into, yeah, I'm aware at least of what's going on this front. I know who you are on this front. Again, we're not implying here, the lawsuit never implies this, and nor is it implied in the article by Marchman and Company. It is not implied that Nick Khan knew of Vince's actions, that what he was doing or was taking part of it. This is not even remotely implied. However, it is pretty clear that that Nick Khan did know who Janel Grant was, if only because of the twists and turns that were taken to make her a member of WWE corporate and make sure that she had a job there. We also had the two other corporate officers that were revealed, corporate officers 3 and 4. Corporate officer 3 was revealed to be Stephanie McMahon, and corporate officer 4 is Brian Nurse, who is the former head, I should say, of WWE's legal department, who was always very, again, according to the lawsuit, very cold, very dismissive, and in certain circumstances, very hostile to Grant. He himself not necessarily enabling the thing. You know, he's being told by HR, we got to put this. This is your new hire. Deal with it. Maybe he did have an inkling of what was going on. But as far as corporate officer 3 goes, Stephanie McMahon, she described her Grant in the she described corporate officer 3 in the lawsuit that they were aware of other instances. This I'm quoting here. Other instances of McMahon engaging, in inappropriate sexual conduct. So essentially saying Steph knew that not necessarily what was going on with Grant specifically, but that she knew that Vince was up to this type of behavior in other circumstances. So that's not necessarily a good look. And again, Stephanie McMahon seemed to know who Janel Grant was because in the lawsuit, I'm paraphrasing here. There's a circumstance where she basically, they're in a meeting and Stephanie McMahon waves to her to come sit next to her. And she's like, well, why would these high-ranking executives know who this entry-level person is if this hadn't been arranged and known about in the C-suite, right? You'd think so at this point. We should point out that a WWE spokesperson responded to Front Office Sports saying, quote, neither Nick Khan nor Brad Blum, prior to the lawsuit being filed on January 25, 2024, were aware of any allegation by Ms. Grant that she was the victim of abuse or unwanted physical contact, nor does the complaint allege that either had knowledge of such. And I think that's fair at this point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here trying to defend Nick Khan, Brad Blum, and company. They were in on it. They were enablers. All signs point to them not knowing, at least as far as we know, as far as what's been revealed so far, right? Or maybe if the trial does end up going to discovery, as you know, if this doesn't settle and it actually does move on, which I think a lot of us really do hope happens. I think a lot of us really do hope that this moves forward and that the WWE's culture is finally exposed now that we have a true mainstream eye on this. So right now, I feel like Nick Khan and Brad Blum are going to try and distance themselves as much as possible from Vince. Vince is no longer with the company. He's no longer with TKO. They don't have to shelter him. There's nothing that they really need to do to protect him. I think that the statement that was put out by the WWE spokesperson to Front Office Sports essentially did that, but very soft. It wasn't a hard cut. No one was they didn't throw Vince under the bus, but they were very clear here in saying, we don't know what was going on. We didn't know. And we were unaware that there were any abuse, that there were any situations that were abusive going on. Essentially saying, we did what the boss asked us to. And that's pretty much it. So I would not be surprised if moving forward, there is more and more distance that is taken from Vince. And maybe, if this goes further, if this goes to discovery, then probably these guys are going to effectively throw Vince under the bus, not unlike what Laurinaitis did. You might see these guys actually making sure that they keep their hands as clean from Vince as possible. Now, when it comes to Stephanie McMahon, this one's a little trickier because if indeed McMahon knew about Vince's priors, if you want to call them that, if she was aware of that, then that's a little more problematic. And then it goes to it goes to wonder, well, who else knew and how deep did it go? And are Nick Khan and Brad Blum really that innocent? Like, did they really not know? This is the kind of stuff that can be shared and talked about in boardrooms and in, boardrooms and all out of the boardroom people. This is the kind of stuff you just talk about. Like, I still fail to believe that Ari Emanuel decided to purchase WWE and sat there on, I don't remember what, I think it was on an MSNBC thing or whatever, sat right next to Vince and said, I didn't want this deal to go through without this guy, I had to bring him back. I can't believe Ari Emanuel didn't have an inkling of knowledge of the stuff that Vince had allegedly been up to over Vince's 50 years in the wrestling business. I honestly, I have trouble fathoming that in my mind. I don't think it makes sense to me. So look, you have to give benefit of the doubt. Because this is what we have on record. We can have our own personal thoughts on the side, such as mine, where, it makes it all very hard to believe that no one knew about Vince's past things, and maybe that this was a pattern of behavior that was continuing with Janel Grant, and that maybe this could have been prevented. Again, like Khan and Blum, maybe maybe they didn't know what was going on. Maybe they weren't aware of any sex trafficking abuse, but it seems improbable. That's all. It just seems improbable that they didn't know. But we have as it stands right now, we're going to go with what we have on the record, and what we have on the record is important. And as for Stephanie McMahon, well, I think that's pretty big. I think that's huge. If there's an allegation out there that she already knew of Vince's past misdeeds and transgressions, I think, she might not have anything to do with the company anymore, but that doesn't mean that she's devoid of responsibility moving forward either. If things happened under her watch and she knew things that maybe could have prevented this from happening, then yeah, it can get pretty spicy for her, and maybe other people involved in the company as well, because there's still people in there that their names are still redacted, right? Like there is a WWE superstar whose name is redacted in here, who was using Janel Grant as Vince passed her on to that WWE superstar. So there's still things going on. There's still elements of this story that haven't come through. I really do hope that this goes forward. I really do hope that Janel has the courage to do it, to expose all of this, and especially while there is a major mainstream eye on all of this. Those of us who've been following the business for years know that WWE's corporate culture has pretty much always been like this. It's not much of a shocker. Vince always thought that he could get away with everything. Maybe not this time. Again, only time will tell. A little extra tidbit. There's not much really on top of these names here to add. Nothing new that we haven't learned. Again, aside from the names, which is huge, but great work from Marchman, from Brendan Thurston over at WrestleNomics, and John Pollock at Post Wrestling. I'm going to wrap it up here for now. That pretty much sums up what I think. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching today, and I'll see you next time.